New footage shows Donald Trump looking incredibly depressed at his birthday parade in Washington, D.C. He's sad that nobody showed up. He truly looks inconsolable. He's upset that nobody showed up to his birthday party. Nobody went to the parade. It was raining all day. And meanwhile, millions of Americans were out in the streets protesting against him. Donald Trump's birthday today ended up being one of the worst days for him of his presidency.
So Donald Trump is facing possibly the biggest humiliation of his entire life right now. His parade, his military birthday parade in D.C. appears to be a complete and total dud. Trump was expecting over 200,000 people to show up in D.C. for this parade. Estimates are now that just about 10,000 people maybe showed up. The images show barely anybody there, and I've talked to some people in D.C. who are on the ground who say that it feels like a normal Saturday and say that it actually might even feel a little quieter than a normal Saturday. I should say also that this parade had to start 30 minutes early because they were worried about the weather, because it's literally going to rain on Donald Trump's parade. Meanwhile, millions and millions and millions of people were out in force at the No Kings protests across the country.
This was supposed to be President Donald Trump's big moment, a birthday celebration combined with a military parade, meant to show strength, unity, and overwhelming support for the man in office. But what the world witnessed instead was a complete humiliation. The turnout was embarrassingly low. Fewer than 10,000 people showed up. For the sitting president's birthday, people who passed through DC said it looked like a regular Saturday morning, maybe even quieter, and Trump was mocked relentlessly online. Memes were flying, users were calling it a ghost town, and asking if the birthday boy forgot to invite guests. Well, they weren't wrong because there was a very low turnout.
Today, Donald Trump suffered a massive defeat and huge blow to his ego. He spent roughly $40 million of our taxpayer money on a fascist dictator-styled military parade. And the best part is, nobody's talking about it. We are not giving him the time of day. The No Kings protests, which are strictly and explicitly against him and his regime, have far outsurpassed the views, the watch time, and the amount of content being put out about his little military parade. And I know that he absolutely hates the fact that his birthday has incited possibly the largest mass protest in American history. Every single state, every major city, and plenty of the minor ones too, along with multiple other countries, have banded together to tell Donald Trump one thing on his birthday: we hate your guts. And if there's one thing we know matters to Donald Trump, it's public perception.
Trump threw a multi-million-dollar parade and got outshined by weather. So, Paw blew through our tax dollars yesterday on a parade for himself, not for the troops, not for the country, not even for the Girl Scouts, just for his fragile ego. It was crickets down there, baby. Empty chairs, sad little flags, and about 3 folks in attendance who smelled like Bengay and Reaganomics. I ain't saying they were old, but one of them pulled out a flip phone and asked where the rotary dial went. And right when Trump thought he was doing something big, boom, rain. I literally said, won't he do it? Because when even the sky is sick of your foolishness, that is divine intervention. That's heavenly shade, baby. He blew millions of dollars to throw himself a little pity parade and couldn't even fill up the sidewalk. He tried to rebrand failure as leadership, but it didn't work. Sir, your base is shrinking faster than your hairline. And if this whole parade thing was supposed to be a power move, it backfired like a 92 Buick.
Let's get into how deeply this bruised Trump's ego. We all know Trump thrives on crowd size, loyalty, and big numbers. From rallies to rallies, he's always boasted that nobody draws a crowd like him. But on his actual birthday, while serving as president, he couldn't even fill the streets of DC. Even worse, some reports claim that people were being paid to show up, allegedly. And there were posts and screenshots offering up to $1,000 for participants. But even with money involved, the turnout still flopped. That's not just embarrassing, it's downright humiliating for someone whose entire image is built around popularity. Meanwhile, millions of people in other cities were protesting in the No Kings movement, flooding the streets in direct opposition to everything Trump symbolizes. So not only was he being ignored, he was being overshadowed by a movement against him.
And yet another horribly embarrassing episode for our dear trustworthy leader. The streets of D.C. were about empty when his military parade was about to start. There was nowhere near the expected 200,000 people who were expected to be there. Trump was humiliated as his pathetic birthday parade draws barely 20,000 people, as an estimated 10 million Americans attended the anti-Trump No King protest across America. What an embarrassing moment for poor little Trumply-doo.
Well, folks, if you saw it on Fox News, you would think Trump's big puffy birthday parade was a grand success. Pomp and circumstance prevailed, and the massive crowds were bursting with American pride. All hail the wizard! Of course, if you saw it pretty much anywhere else where the truth doesn't get dismembered, reassembled, and sexed up, you would have seen the sad, desperate fumes of an aspirational idea with no gas. Yeah, it was so pathetic I almost felt sorry for Grandpa. He probably went to bed Friday night with visions of tight military marching formations, machines looking so mighty the world would shudder, and crowds as far as the eye can see, all wearing their MAGA merch, straining their loyal eyes for a glimpse of the king. I mean the dictator. I mean the president. Instead, the marchers looked like they did a little day drinking before the show. The machines literally squeaked along, looking like poorly serviced movie props, and the crowds looked like people who got paid to be there. Trump expected 200,000 people. The actual numbers are likely between 20,000 to 50,000, possibly less. Womp womp, birthday boy. Underperforming seems to be the trend, huh? In fact, let's remember, folks, Trump couldn't fill up his rallies, even small venues. He couldn't get enough butts in the seats to make any of his rah-rah gatherings look well attended. This time, he not only paid people, he threw in all kinds of promises for a grand spectacle. They even had fireworks. And still, nobody turned out. Yeah.
Now that we've seen the clips, the turnout, and the online reactions, let's talk about what this really means. Because this wasn't just a failed birthday parade. This was a public moment of embarrassment for President Trump, considering he is a man who has always centered himself around grandiosity, massive rallies, loud crowds, record-breaking turnouts. But when it came to celebrate his own birthday while in office, tied to a national military event, no one showed up. Well, that silence wasn't just about the weather. That silence was louder than any protest chant. And speaking of protest, millions of people were showing up elsewhere. The No Kings movement dominated the streets across several states. People were marching, organizing, and making noise and enjoying. But not for Trump. They were pushing back against what he stands for. That contrast, it couldn't have been more brutal. And Trump, he was mocked ruthlessly. Social media lit up with jokes, side-by-side comparisons. Headlines called it a flop, and others said it looked like he was throwing himself a pity party. So, what does it say about a sitting president when his birthday becomes a trending joke? When millions march in protest the same weekend, but barely thousands come out in support? It says the American public is watching, and the illusion of untouchable power, it's starting to crack. But I want to know what you think. Is Trump losing grip on the people? Was this parade a one-time embarrassment, or is it a sign of something bigger? Drop your thoughts below and let's talk about it in the comments. And if you haven't already, hit like, share this video, and subscribe to keep up with more trending moments and real reactions. Because in a world this loud, sometimes the silence says the most. Thank you so much for sticking around, guys, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.